Hello there, guys, everybody. Hey, it's almost Easter 2013, and I wanted to kind of do a little bitty video, maybe not so little bitty, but I'll try to keep it short, about something that is kind of cool around Christmas time, Easter, the idea of angels. And I want to talk real quick because a lot of people miss this in the Bible, or if they don't miss it, they think angels are always these cute little beings or these big beings dressed up in, with flowing robes and wings and all this cute little stuff they got going on. Really pretty and always shiny. And I want to give you a different perspective real quick. Early in the Bible, you see angels appear. Well, actually, very early in the Bible, you see an angel appear, and it's not a real nice, sweet, pretty angel. When Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, it says that God placed a cherubim or an angel there with a flaming sword, that swung back. I think that swung back and forth. I don't remember the exact quote, but he placed an angel at the gate to the Garden of Eden to prevent mankind, or to prevent Adam and Eve and their descendants from coming back into the garden. That was how serious he was about that. Later on in Genesis, two angels appeared with the Lord to Abraham, and these angels, it doesn't really say much about them other than they had power, and they were able to, they were able to strike the people of Sodom blind at one point, and you may have seen that on some of the, TV programs lately about the Bible. They sort of accurately portrayed that, but later on in Joshua, and there's angels throughout the Bible, but in the book of Joshua, when the children of Israel had entered the promised land, they'd just come over and they were about to attack Jericho, and Joshua was ready, and his army was getting ready, and he was about to go towards Jericho. And it says in, I think it's Joshua 5 or 6, but it says that he looked, and behold, he saw an army. And at the head of that army was the captain. He walks up and he actually falls on his feet. And he says, take off your shoes. The angel tells him, take off your shoes, for you're standing on holy ground. And this is an army of angels. And Joshua says, who are you, that I might understand who's on my side? And this army, this general says, I am the captain of the army of the Lord of hosts. I won't go into the theology of that. People believe that was the Lord, the pre-incarnate Christ, who leads that army. But we don't know for sure. But it's pretty cool. But think of that. There's this vast army of angels. And it was probably a very awe-inspiring, very terrifying sight. Because, we think of angels as, oh, that's so cute, that's so cool, that's so magnificent. But to have an army of angels standing there, in reality, that you could see, was probably a staggering, just soul-wrenching thing. I mean, it happened again later on, and if you read in, I think it's 2 Kings, the prophet Elisha one morning comes out of his tent, and, well, first his servant Gehazi comes out of his tent and looks around and is just terrified, and he starts crying. He runs into the tent and says, Master, we're undone, we're in trouble. The armies of the I think it's the king of Syria, the armies of the king are surrounding us. We're done for. We're going to be dead. Elisha comes out of the tent and looks around and says, touches. I think he prays for Gehazi and says, Lord, open his eyes. And when Gehazi opens his eyes, Elisha's servant, he sees not just this army of bad guys facing them, surrounding where they were, but he sees this giant army of angels, mounted already, this army of angels facing outward and surrounding that army. And he strikes them blind. These angels strike that army blind and lead the army back to their, tell them to go home, basically, back to their homeland. But this is an awe-inspiring sight for humans like you and I, and what's burning on my heart, and why I want to talk about angels is, we've got this concept that they're not important somehow, or that if they're important, they're to do our bidding, or we get to boss angels around, or angels are like secondary to what we do or what we think or what we've been through. But in reality, let me tell you something. Let me go to another incident. And you all just about 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, probably heard about this in song, and angels we have heard on high, and away in a manger, and all that. Right around Christmas time. Well, remember what happened to the shepherds that were out watching their flocks by night outside of Bethlehem in Judea? You remember the night that Christ was born? You remember what appeared to them? It was, it says a heavenly host appeared to them. Well, the true translation is an army of freaking angels. Well, not the word freaking, but an army of angels appeared to these people. out of nowhere, these shepherds, and these are simple people that have been out watching their flocks at night, and it's cold, it's probably late September, October, they're sitting there, and these angels appear to them, and these guys are stunned. I mean, they're awestruck. They're like, oh my God, and these angels are singing or chanting or whatever it is, glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to all, and to men on whom his favor rests, whatever it was. But these angels were an awe-inspiring sight. But I want you to get it in your head for a moment, that angels and the presence of armies of angels are there. So we can't see them because our spiritual eyes just aren't open. And most of us will never get close enough to God to be able to have our spiritual eyesight and our spiritual vision open to that extent. But they're there. They're all around. There are angels and demons. There's armies of unseen beings fighting. All that, throughout this world, I believe, at different times. And I think the Bible proves that up. Look at theologians, what they say. Look at other preachers. Look at the Bible. Read the Bible yourself from start to cover 3 or 4 times, looking just for angels, and you're going to see angels are extremely active in the affairs of humankind. I mean, when Daniel, back in the book of Daniel, prayed to God, it says that angel, I think it was Michael, the archangel, fought with the armies of darkness for 21 days. To get through to Daniel and give him a message. So there was war going on, man. I mean, this is all-out war in the heavenlies that we can't see. But now, we all hear about the whole purpose of what I'm doing right now. Is we all talk about heroes and superheroes and angels and, tough guys and macho, weightlifters, powerlifters, football players. We all have our basketball players. We all have our idols and our heroes. Well, let me just tell you about my hero, okay? I think it was about, Thursday night, about 1900, and I think it was 87 or so years ago, this 33-year-old dude named Jesus was up in this garden praying with his disciples. And 3 of his disciples had gone a little farther with him, and they were praying, and he was praying so hard that his blood vessels, his capillaries broke, and he was actually praying and bleeding drops of blood and sweat. And as he was weeping tears, there were drops of tears. He was crying blood. He was praying so hard. It's a physical response, but he was praying so hard to God. And the whole thing was, Lord, not my will, not what I want to do, but what you want to do is what I want. Is what I will do. Not my will, but thine be done. Your will be done. And then he goes down, and Judas comes up. You've all heard the story. This is Easter time, when Christ was arrested and then crucified the next day. This is Easter, 1987 years ago. Okay, here Jesus goes down, walks down a little ways. Judas comes up, kisses him, and there's about 500 or 600 people with Judas, soldiers, all this kind of stuff. And they go to arrest Jesus, and Peter whips out his sword and chops off one of the guy's ear. And Jesus says, "Wait, man, and he stop." And he says, "Those who live by the sword will die by the sword." But he reaches down, he picks up the ear, and he heals the guy's ear right there. And he also, when they asked him, they said, "Are you Jesus? We're looking for Jesus." And he said, "I am he." Those 3 words, I am he. When Jesus said those words, that whole crowd of 500 or 600 people got knocked backward to the ground. It's in the Bible. Trust me, I'm not lying to you. It's right there. It says that they fell backwards to the ground when he said the words, I am he. Now then, he looks at Peter and he tells him, he says, "Look, shall I not drink the cup that my Father has given me to drink?" Meaning, shall I not go through with this eternal plan that's been created, that's been set up since the foundation of the world to save all of humanity? Shouldn't I go through with this instead of what my human flesh would want me to do? And he says to Peter, Peter, could I not call 12 legions of angels to my disposal right now? You know what? That's 72,000 angels Jesus could have called right then. And what I want you to get the picture of is, folks, if you don't think those angels were right there waiting to be called, you're sadly mistaken. I guarantee you these angels were ready, because this was the Son of God. They knew it. This was the only ever begotten Son of God, standing there about to be arrested by a bunch of slimy, measly, grimy, stinky, smelly little humans. And he says to Peter, "Look, couldn't I call 72,000 of the most powerful beings you've ever even seen, Peter, to my disposal right now?" But he chose not to. So what I want you to get the picture of is that, yes, there were angels and there were armies of angels, but you know what? There were also armies of darkness too. What Jesus did, my hero, what he did was greater than any Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Hulk, you name it, greater than any other fake hero could have ever done. Jesus looked to the future, and he saw all the hell and all the anger and all the violence and all the hatred and all the strife and all the sins and all the evil spirits and all the evil demons and all the fallen angels that were against him. And he chose to walk straight at them. He chose to say, look, I will walk straight towards you and I will conquer you through giving my life for all of these worthless, ugly, smelly, stinky people and all the ones who will ever be born. And Jesus did that. So my hero looked at the powers of darkness and looked at huge angel armies that were against him, because they exist. It says in the Bible that 1/3 of the angels that existed were thrown from heaven to the earth. So 1/3 of all the angels were thrown to earth. So what I want you to understand is that my hero paid the price. My hero looked at all those powers of darkness and walked into them and walked through them and walked to the cross, let them crucify him, and then 3 days later, well, they let him kill him, and then 3 days later he took back his life again. He rose from the dead. That's the story of Easter. Jesus rose from the dead and conquered the powers of darkness. It says in Revelation 1:18, he took the keys of hell and death from the enemy. I want you to remember that. Happy Easter.